Fleshing out the big issues, analysing the facts, throwing out the fiction. It's pure, unadulterated opinion. No topic off limits, no holding back, no scripts, no rules. So, bull, bring it on. Barry Soper, Trish Sherson, Chris Carter, Heather Duplessis-Allen. The Front Bench on News Talk ZB.
Kia ora, good afternoon. Welcome to the show. We're going to have the front bench with us in just a tick. Question after 5. Why are we still in level 1? Grant Robertson's going to join us after 6 to explain. Our reporter is in Ohau. He's going to give us a first-hand account of the fire damage there. And Ashley Church on National's housing policy.
The Front Bench.
All right, well, look, Judith Collins can protest all she likes, but those who say that she is politicising her faith are on the money. She is absolutely doing it, and quite deliberately. It might be going a little bit far, I would say, probably, to say that she orchestrated an opportunity for the media to take photographs of her praying, but I think we can say that she absolutely spotted that opportunity and then seized it, and she used it to ram home a message she's been trying to get out for a week and a half. She raised her Christianity for the first time unprompted probably about a week and a half ago in that TVNZ leaders debate, went on to do it in the News Hub debate again, apparently also raised it at a Grey Power meeting in Nelson, and then what a coincidence, she gets photographed praying. Now, it goes without saying, this is obviously designed to win some votes, most probably by drawing over voters from the New Conservatives who pitch themselves as based on Judeo-Christian principles, and they're polling between 1.5% and 2%, depending on which poll you look at. Those points could really help the Nats right now. It doesn't sit entirely comfortably, though. For National, this runs the risk of spooking the liberal secular voters. Already the Nats are heavily stacked with Christian MPs. That number's just going up all the time. And the party has taken a big turn towards being more socially conservative since Simon Bridges' leadership. And for Judith Collins, it's not brand enhancing to appear to be as calculating as this. It is calculating to use your religion for gain. And it is even more calculating to pretend that you're not doing that.
The Front Bench.
All right, let's bring in our front bench now. Political editor Barry Soper, former ACT Party press secretary Trish Sherson.
Didn't quite make it that far.
It was an upgrade, though. Just pretend it's on your CV now, isn't it?
Thank you.
Former Labour Minister Chris Carter. Great to have you guys here. Thanks for coming in. All right, I'm going to start by just bringing you up to speed on this Christian debate. So Judith Collins has gone to great lengths to make sure people understand she is a woman of faith in the past week and a half. It started off with the TVNZ debate, but then it went to the News Hub debate last week with this comment.
As a Christian, I do actually believe in miracles, but I tell you what, he ain't going to be one of them.
And then yesterday, things ramped up as Judith Collins went to vote at that church on Sunday and was filmed and photographed kneeling down, head on her hands in prayer. And she explained to Mike Hosking how the situation came about.
The minister said, would you like to pop in and have a prayer, Judith? And I said, yes, I would. I didn't ask the media in. And I turned around and there they were, all happily taking shots. So now I thought, gosh, well, I'll just keep on doing what I'm doing.
Okay, well, Barry Soper's already making noises like he doesn't believe it. Do you not believe it, Barry?
I think, poor thing, the media encroaching on her moment with the great almighty. And look, the last time I clasped my hands together like Judith Collins did and knelt so reverentially was when I went to my first communion as about an 8-year-old. I've never seen anybody clasp their hands like that except for Donald Trump. I think when he was a bit uncomfortable with the Bible in front of a church after he set his goons
but that
against
was
protesters.
that felt equally kind of disingenuous, didn't it, Trish?
I'm very, I don't know, this stuff makes me feel very uncomfortable.
Why is that?
Well, probably because if I entered a church and knelt down, there could be a bolt of lightning. And so
that's right.
It's not a natural operating environment for me, but I don't know. I've always felt relieved in New Zealand that we're not in the US style of religion,
evangelical politics,
and reference to the Almighty all the time, and I think that's a really good thing in New Zealand, particularly because we are now so diverse. But I don't know about this. It seems to me to be it is a vote grab, and it just doesn't sit well.
Yeah, Chris. The problem is a lot of people have, exactly as Trish, have expressed a concern about having Christianity or any kind of religion creep into our politics, that everything seems so secular and we're all comfortable with that. Do you think it is better for us to be secular? What's the danger in Christianity creeping in?
Well, I think it's very dangerous if people have very extreme beliefs. But there is a core constituency out there. Heather, you mentioned it earlier that the New Conservatives, who are basically a Christian party, are rising to about 2%. Then we've got Advanced New Zealand. And Barry, and you'll remember the 96 election where the Christian Coalition got 4.3% of the vote. So Judith's grabbing every vote she can get. And, maybe the power of prayer is the only way she's going to win this election.
And there is, I'd pick Chris up on that. There is a big Christian constituency out there. And like you said, it was, dare I repeat his name, but Graham Capel came very close to being in Parliament.
As did Colin Craig, who was overtly Christian.
As did Colin Craig. I mean, even though he wasn't overtly Christian.
No, he was overtly
Christian. He didn't constantly ram it down your throat religion. He was more sort of conservative.
Don't you think this says something about our country, that all of us who have got diverse political views, or at least certainly Trish and I have, we're all on the same page with this one. We don't think that religion should be part of our politics.
I think it's often what comes with religion, and where Graham Cable was a great example, but it's often behaviour that you don't feel is aligned to that, or it is a way of shutting down or denigrating other groups, and it's not the kind of open sort of inclusive debate that we really like in New Zealand.
To your point, Chris, I think, look, I grew up in a Christian family. I'm very happy to identify, as Christian, but very liberal, I mean, I like a drink. I like a lot of drinks. Do you know what I mean? So I'm not a stickler for the rules of Christianity.
Don't let that white jacket fool you.
What I want to say about it is, what concerns me is that I am concerned that decisions will be based by any leader of the country on their religion, and that it will take us to a conservative place that I don't feel comfortable. And that is where I'm coming from. Do you imagine that is sort of roughly where you're coming from on it?
Absolutely. It sounds like Barry and I both went to the Catholic school as kids.
Yeah.
And we were taught by the nuns and the Christian brothers. Yeah. But despite that, that I don't think religion should be any part of politics.
Well, it was the old days. We grew up at a table saying, never mix religion, politics, or sport. The three shall never meet. But
here's
of course
the thing,
they do.
Listen, Barry and Trish, both of you, I want your takes on it, and then we've got to go to a break. Obviously has the potential to win votes. Does it have the potential to lose her votes, Trish?
I think it does. I think if people felt that it wasn't being done in a genuine way, and that there was a foundation there that meant decisions would be made that weren't inclusive, I think that would turn people away.
Okay. Yeah, and I think the fact that I think she just made it so much worse when she said, I wasn't aware that the media were going to follow me in. And then, to me, it was an absolute pose in that front row pew. If they were religious, why wasn't her husband, David Tong, there?
I think it was the idea was that it was a sort of spur of the moment.
Well, they were both
thing.
sort of together.
Well, if it had been a classic Collins, like, actually, I need all the help I can get. Thank you, Minister. I will pop in and just spend a couple of minutes talking with him and see what he could do. I think that would have come across better.
For the mainstream, it's a turn off, I think.
Yes, I think, and just to your point, Trish, I think that she needs to own these things rather than trying to pretend that it was not supposed to really happen and she hadn't expected it would. Just own it. We're okay with that. We can live with it. Let's take a break. When we come back, I'd really like to talk about the Prime Minister has copped a lot of flack for politicising that 1 o'clock press conference today. So we'll talk about that. We'll also talk about the narrowing gap between the left and right bloc and what we're seeing there. It's 4:15, News Talk ZB.
Good location, eh?
It is. The median sale price is up 6.2%. Your work is 23 minutes away. And we're in zone for a great primary school.
School? Why does that matter?
Are you ready to settle on a new home? With OneRoof, you'll find all the information you need, from thousands of in-depth listings, sales data, suburb information, property records and much more. Be property prepared with OneRoof.
How can you tell what's real? Is it real if you've read it, heard it, seen it? The story is a story as soon as it's been shared. But how do you know you can believe it?
Believe it when you read it in New Zealand's Herald.
List your vehicle for sale on Driven for just $20. Load up to 25 photos, keep your listing up until it sells, and reach thousands of potential buyers. Sell your car at driven.co.nz.
All right, it's 4:18. Welcome back. Now, all eyes were on the infamous 1 o'clock, or infamous, I don't know if that's the right word. That's the word my producer gave me. The infamous 1 p.m. press briefing today for the announcement on whether or not Auckland would return to level 1. But Jacinda Ardern is now copping criticism for politicising this announcement because she used the opportunity to criticise other parties' border policies and National's housing plan. What do you make of it, Trish? Did it jar with you?
Yeah, it did. I mean, the whole thing is the same thing, la 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 la. You know, and
wash your hands. No,
wash your hands. What I love
literally
today,
that came up as well.
Have you seen that Spitting Image is back in Britain, which I love?
Wonderful.
And Jacinda
Mary
is
Poppins.
as Mary Poppins, right? Now here's the weird thing, totally off track. Over the weekend I was thinking about my election night theme tune for Labour, and I thought supercalifragilisticexpialidocious. You know, Jacinda is like Mary Poppins. In the end, I have gone with Gary Wright, 1975. Dreamweaver.
Why?
Because just listen to this.
Not familiar with the song.
Oh, you've got to play it. You'll just love it. Dreamweaver. It's massive.
Dreamweaver ants.
But some of the great lyrics are: fly me through the starry skies, maybe to an astral plane, cross the highways of fantasy, help me to forget today's pain. Absolutely perfect.
Well, are you saying we've gone into some sort of COVID la-la land?
We have gone into COVID la-la land.
The thing that drives me mad, and it has done right from the start of these proclamations from the sermon at 1 o'clock every day, is that, you know, here we all are in Auckland waiting to find out whether we're going to alert level 1. We're waiting for the guts of the press conference. And it was about 8 or 9 minutes before she actually told us that we were moving to another alert level. Well, I'm sorry, do we need all that other
you have to sit through
beforehand?
the faff. You
It
have
really
to sit...
annoys me. I'll tell you what would have happened in the old days, Heather, and I mean this. A press conference wouldn't have been held like that, because that's what it is. A journalist would not sit there compliant and allow somebody to go on for at least 10 minutes before any interruption.
I think it's the party political broadcast.
Yes, it is.
It is a party political broadcast.
I think you're being very cynical. I think that the message that New Zealanders, the message that New Zealanders got was that we have defeated the second wave.
No, it's that Labour and
the government leadership has kept New Zealand safe. And you know, these questions came up in question time. She didn't attack the opposition in her presentation.
Oh, come on,
she was
Chris.
asked questions by journalists.
You are far too long.
And also, it's very
nonsense.
precious from Judith Collins and David Seymour to be attacking this. They used their conferences to launch their election campaigns by attacking the government's COVID policies. You know, we're in the middle of an election campaign.
Hold
There's
on.
a week and a half to go.
Chris, come on. Here's the thing, right? You have a situation where she is playing both the Prime Minister and the Labour Party leader in an unprecedented
But Heather, she never mentioned it in her presentation until she was asked by journalists.
No, I'm
Blame
not
the
journalists.
journalists.
I'm not talking about that.
Okay.
I am saying that it's an unprecedented situation where we've never really, in living memory or recent memory, had a government governing this hard right up to the day, right? Normally you break for campaign and you go off. But she has to, by dint of the situation, go out there and be the Prime Minister at the same time as being the Labour Party leader. She needs to clarify very clearly One is the PM's job, one is the Labour Party's leader's job. But she is bleeding them together quite deliberately for political gain.
She did declare it as a COVID election.
Yeah, I think you've been very unfair. I think she's been very careful about that. I mean, she hasn't appeared herself for quite a long time in these announcements. She put Chris Hipkins on. She put Dr. Bloomfield. She has tried to depoliticise it. I think she's been very fair.
I don't want to bring back religion, but the only thing missing from that diatribe was a lovely church choir saying hallelujah at relevant times.
And God bless the United States of New Zealand.
But colleagues, come back to the simple thing is
he was there.
That the journalist raised these issues at question time after her presentation.
Yeah, but we had to sit through her nonsense at the start about how wonderful she'd
Thank
done.
goodness she's kept the country safe. Thank goodness she's kept the country
she
safe.
could sub out of that and put you in for a minute. Anyway, listen, let's take a break with this slot. I don't know how we're going to make it through the front bench, eh? We'll take a break. When we come back, plenty to discuss. Also going to get to Donald Trump getting the old COVID in a minute. 4:23 News Talk ZB. All right, 4:25, back with News Talk ZB. It wasn't a good week for Winston Peters, of course, last week with news that the SFO has charged 2 people linked to the New Zealand First Foundation with obtaining by deception. So Winston then gave a pretty fiery press conference to say NZ First and all of its MPs had been completely exonerated by the SFO, and he is launching legal action. The question, of course, he's compared himself to Hillary Clinton, and he reckons he's being James Comey. He reckons that the SFO shouldn't have laid charges or released the information ahead of the election. What do you reckon, Chris?
Well, I think that he was polling in the News Hub poll recently at 1.9 and the latest one Colmar Brunton poll at 1%. So unlike Hillary Clinton, who was ahead and then got just missed out, even though she got 3 million more votes, Winston is not well ahead, he's well behind. So it hasn't helped the SFO, but I think that it's sayonara Winston.
I think so too. Trish, it wouldn't have been the right thing, though, to send voters to the polls with this thing hanging over them.
No, and if you've been exonerated, what does it matter? You could platform you could platform off that. The problem is they are just not in the conversation. They are not in people's minds. Nobody at this stage is thinking about what Winston thinks about National and Labor and who he'd go with. You think we're so programmed into that, and suddenly this election, all of that has disappeared, and it's really just about Labor and National. Will the Greens get there, and how much will ACT get? That's pretty much it.
That's a very good point. I don't think anybody I've heard them ask Winston in this campaign, who are you going to go with if you're in that position? Because I think everybody accepts he won't be in that position. I think, the difficulty with this whole SFO thing is that Winston came out, and I was at the stand-up when he talked to journalists about it. He was so adamant that the party, the MPs and himself as leader had been cleared, but the SFO wasn't looking at the party, the MPs. Sorry, they weren't looking at the MPs, and they weren't looking at Winston Peters' leadership. They were looking at the New Zealand First Foundation. And the great difficulty that Winston has always had with his foundation is to separate that from the party. And, the public, it sort of reminded me, going back to Owen Glenn and to 2008, where he stood aside as foreign minister because, it was all swirling around him, looked unattractive. And I think people just get sick of it, as they did in 2008.
I think so too.
And he was out of Parliament.
But as we've discussed before, Barry, though, New Zealand political scene will be a poorer place without Winston. He's one of the great characters of our
maybe the
politics.
post-election weeks are going to be much more interesting and much more streamlined without him.
Streamline's the word. All right, we'll take the break. When we come back, we've got to talk about this closing gap between the right and the left-wing bloc. You're with the front bench. Trish, what are we listening to?
We're listening to Dream Weaver by Gary Wright, 1975. This is Labour's election night
Here's
theme
one
song.
for you, Jacinda.
Location, eh?
It is. The median sale price is up 6.2%. Your work is 23 minutes away. And we're in zone for a great primary school.
School? Why does that matter?
Are you ready to settle on a new home? With One Roof, you'll find all the information you need, from thousands of in-depth listings, sales data, suburb information, property records and much more. Be property prepared with One Roof.
List your vehicle for sale on Driven for just $20. Load up to 25 photos, keep your listing up until it sells, and reach thousands of potential buyers. Sell your car at driven.co.nz.
Kia ora Aotearoa. Angus Hines here with your national weather forecast. And in some ways, this week is sort of the opposite to last week, in that we're starting with some windy and warm northwest conditions across the country. That's where we are now. This is very much like last week finished, with some absolutely scalding temperatures actually up the east coast of the country, 28s and 29s for some spots there. But things are changing during the day, starting on Tuesday, as we have southerlies. A polar outbreak sliding up the South Island Tuesday, then the North Island on Wednesday. It's pretty obvious on the map here, this line of rain moving up the country. It's not moving especially fast, but throughout the day it's going to move from Southland up to about Marlborough, maybe just meeting Wellington around about midnight. There's a kink in the isobars turning around to the south, so cool southerly winds coming up with this rainy change. But given you're not seeing the front up here, it's another pretty decent day for the upper North Island. There's a couple of changes from the weekend. Firstly, the signal for fog in the morning hours is getting more extensive, especially western spots here. So all the way from Northland down to Waikato, Taupo, there's a chance you will see some fog in the morning. But given the warmer temperatures we're getting during the day, if you do have some morning fog, shouldn't take too long for it to burn away. Then we're expecting partly cloudy skies for the rest of the afternoon. No shower activity and just light winds, so we're doing pretty well. And it's staying very warm for eastern spots. Gisborne, 26 degrees. Spots near there could get 1 or 2 warmer than that. Predominantly dry weather through central Aotearoa, but it is going to be another breezy day for the capital. And in fact, we've got a strong wind watch active for northwest gales through Wellington and wired up gusting 80, 90, 100 kilometres an hour, something like that for much of the day. So it is fairly breezy. Whilst it stays sunny along the east coast, western areas get often cloudy conditions, and then towards evening some wet weather will develop in the west. Just some patches of drizzle for most, although Wellington could get a little bit of heavier rain right before midnight as that front arrives. As for the South Island, we start off with warm northwest winds along eastern areas. It does become cloudy, however, then the change is coming during the afternoon, or early afternoon, maybe between midday and 2 p.m. for Christchurch. Later on in the afternoon and even up into the evening for Marlborough, that's going to be a southerly flow up that east coast, so temperatures are going to drop away sharply after lunch. There's going to be a brief spell of rainfall, nothing heavy or persistent, right as that front goes through. Then in the wake of the front, you have cooler conditions with the southerlies, quite cloudy conditions for the second half of the day here, and the risk of some further light drizzle. The western side of the country gets a much heavier band of rain as that front crosses up during the afternoon, so becoming cloudy with a few showers in the morning, a couple of hours of a decent heavy rain in the afternoon, and then things do clear up before the end of the day. As for the South Island, the action here is in the morning, and it's pretty early morning for some spots. So Invercargill, Dunedin, Queenstown, expecting that band of rain to push through by 7 or 8 a.m. A little further north, could last till 10 a.m. or maybe midday before the rain does clear up. Then the afternoon is actually predominantly fine in this area. Lots of sunshine expected, maybe a couple of showers linger up here through Oamaru and Timaru, whereas Dunedin, Invercargill, Queenstown, Milford Sound all in for a nice sunny afternoon. There is one other thing I do have to add though, and that is the daily temperature maximums. Probably quite optimistic here because 17, that's the temperatures we're expecting in the northwest wind the very early hours of the morning. Happening between midnight and 4 a.m. is probably when you're going to see your maximum temperature here. Once the southerly moves through, something like 5 a.m. or so, temperatures are going to cool off, and then most of the afternoon is probably hovering more like 10 or 12 degrees. So even though you see 17, plan your day to be around 10 or 12. Now, the following day, the front weakens as it moves up the North Island, but it brings morning rainfall to Taranaki, Taupo and everywhere south of that. The afternoon in the southern half is looking pretty good, nice and clear, although a little chilly with a southerly flow. And then we get a brief spell of rain, or maybe just a shower really, as that front weakens and continues to move northwards, just bringing maybe half an hour of wet weather through Tamaki, Makaurau, Northland and Gisborne towards the end of the day. As for the South Island, there's actually another little frontal change which follows up the initial one, brings some more morning rainfall and cool temperatures to Southland, Dunedin, then some afternoon rainfall up through Canterbury, Ōtautahi, up into Marlborough as well, and they get some cool weather and some soggy conditions to finish. For the most part, the north and the west are in line for a fine day. So there is a fair bit happening this week with the weather forecast. Stay on top of what's happening around you at metservice.com. For now, kia pai tō rā.
It's the most important election in a generation, so we're putting the questions you want answered to the politicians vying to lead the nation for the next 3 years. From COVID-19 and border security to the economic slump it's brought with it, we'll get the leaders' plans for jobs, education, housing, the environment and healthcare. From the front gate, farm gate, or the front line, submit your video questions to us on your favourite social platform for the leaders of National, Labour, ACT, the Greens and New Zealand First, and watch live as we put them to the parties on nzherald.co.nz. It's your vote, so we're getting your questions answered at New Zealand's home of Election 2020.
On News Talk ZB.
Supercalifragilisticexpialidocious. Even though the sound of it is something quite atrocious, if you say it loud enough, you'll always sound precocious. Supercalifragilistic.
Welcome back to the front bench. Now, we don't make a habit of playing Mary Poppins on the show, but this one is for Trish Sherson, who's called it as Labour's theme song. Stay tuned, because after 6 o'clock, we're going to be talking to Grant Robertson. Just why, oh why, is Auckland still in level 1? But let's get back to the front bench. Last week, we opened the show asking if National was in a death spiral. Since then, the Colmar-Brunton poll has placed National at 33%. That's up 2, so we can say the death spiral has been avoided. Labour is down 1 on 47. ACT is up 1 on 8. The Greens are up 1 on 7. New Zealand First, never mind. Currently, there is still a gap of 14 points between National and ACT and Labour and the Greens. You take out the Greens and the gap is only 7. Labour's been busy matching National Party policies. RMA reform, TY, bailing out Canterbury DHB, just to name a few. Jacinda Ardern has turned up the attack on Judith Collins, and take the SFO comment, which was pretty nasty, or her behaviour at the News Hub debate. And then over the weekend, Labour released a new election ad that ends like this.
And just like before, we all have a role to play. So now's not the time to slow down. Together, let's keep moving.
So the question is, Barry, I want to come to you on this one first. The question is if Labour is starting to get a wee bit defensive, seeing the momentum starting to build with National.
I think, in fairness to Labour, they always anticipated that, the gap would narrow. There's no doubt about that. It's 14%. It's still a large gap, less than 2 weeks out from the election. But nevertheless, the trend has started. And Judith Collins, if she has another good debate, and she's out there, praying in the front row of church.
So she's got the big guy on her side.
Her prayers might be answered. That, I think, the narrowing gap is what I like. You always, I think all of us here like to see a bit of a competition. And MMP is about coalition government. So anything can end up being any way at all. When you saw after the 2017 election that against all odds, Labour was announced as the winner by Winston Peters. Well, anything's possible in this environment.
It does feel a little bit like that, Trish. I'm reading, though, into all of these things, the policies that are being matched is almost like a neutralising, right? It's trying to say to the voter, you don't need to go to National to save TY, we will save TY. You don't need to go to National for RMA reform, we will do that. Just trying to shore up their own, keep those National Party voters with them, right?
Yeah, that's exactly right. And if you think about it, Labour started out this campaign saying we don't really want to announce a whole lot. We just want to kind of keep it BAU. Yep. I think they've had to, but that can also work two ways, right? Because voters go, well, how come it's taken till now? And that's the RMA is a great point on that, because everyone except Phil Twyford knew before the last election that the biggest issue to building more houses is the RMA and the compliance costs. But no, he had a better idea in KiwiBuild. So now that they are matching it, and it's still in that big soft middly kind of area, trying to get them over. The where Judith is winning, though, I think, is because she is actually coming out with detail that people can get their head around. So if you think about the debate last week, that was the big difference. Jacinda was very high level and talking sort of blue sky and feelings, and Collins was really driving at every opportunity to say, well, this is what we do, this is what we do, this is what we do. So I think it's been a much more interesting, contest than we thought. 3 weeks ago we were all saying, oh God, we're just about asleep and where's the pulse in this? So I think the big question is now around the Greens, and I think they will still be really nervous about where they're polling now, whether that's going to get them over the line.
Because it's still not in safe territory.
It is absolutely not in safe territory. And don't forget,
7%.
It's 7, but they come in lower.
We'll come back to that, Chris. We'll come back to that.
And also, from here on in, the squeeze for them to get airtime, the Greens to get airtime, is tighter and tighter. So if you were them, what you would hope is now you have such a tough machine on the ground that this is now all about driving.
Can I just pick up one little point you made there? Because I think, and Chris will probably disagree with this, but I think when Jacinda Ardern declared this as a COVID election, she said at the time, I was there, don't expect too much policy from us in the lead up to this election. National started trotting out the policy, and now we're seeing the Labour Party matching it, and as Heather cited, the RMA and what have you.
Barry, I think Jacinda has not labelled it a COVID election. She's acknowledged that's what people are. That's
what she said it was. She said it was a COVID election.
Because that's what the public are focused on, and they're focused on what's happened, as they are globally in every country, actually.
Yeah.
I mean, look at the impact in the US at the moment. With
It's just
Trump's
acknowledging
thing.
the facts.
So
right?
look, Trish, I don't agree with you that
Get away.
that the Greens will do worse. In every election, they've actually done slightly better.
No, you're wrong.
Not on
polling.
polling.
When they go in, when on ballot day, they if
I know
they're
what. No,
polling
I know
near
what
the
Chris
threshold.
means.
Yeah, the specials always.
Yes. What you first have to factor in is the poll. It drops from the previous polls on the night. It drops, and then the specials save them. The specials are not going to save them this time
because there's nobody overseas.
The specials overseas are voting for Jacinda.
At the moment, they're 7%, right? But that's pretty okay.
They've dropped.
I bet Winston wishes he was at 7% or even 5%. No, I think that Labor's still 14 points ahead. We're a week and a half till the election. Voting's already started. I voted today, actually, and
who did you vote for?
I voted for Phil Twyford and for Labor.
You did.
I did.
Wow.
Yes.
Why'd you vote for Phil Twyford?
Well, he is my successor as MP for Te Atatu, of course.
Okay.
So of course I
Big reason.
Yeah. Okay. Well,
2 ticks for Labor.
You were great.
Of course I did.
You were great at that job.
Here's a point, though, on the early voting that I would make. Why would you vote now unless you really had to? Because in the last 2 weeks, anything and everything can happen. I would leave my vote right at the
I'll tell you why I voted now, Trish, because I've seen what a fantastic job the government has done in keeping New Zealand safe, in supporting New Zealand businesses, the wage subsidy.
I want to come back to the problem with this, though. The problem for Jacinda Ardern is again, she is backing herself into something that will be hard after the election. She has become a one-trick pony this election around COVID and crisis management, and there is no track record of delivery to build on after the election. And last election, she got herself in trouble for making huge promises that she couldn't deliver on. So
hospitals
I
and
think
schools.
it's a real risk.
Actually, it's been 3 years of very good delivery.
Why is it a risk post-election?
Well, because next year, I would say by mid-year, we are going to be in a really difficult situation economically. Yeah. And if you're just focused still on the health response, you have got nowhere to go. And the smart thing to do would have been to go, how can I reach across, like I've done with health, reach across to business and actually build a partnership to get the economic stuff going? What's happened to the Prime Minister's
the Prime Minister was just
gone.
Selected by Business New
Sidelined and
Zealand.
ignored.
The Prime Minister was selected by Business New Zealand as the most admired minister in the government, the most admired politician in the country, because of the way she supported New Zealand business during this period of crisis. Look, our biggest trading partner, China, has not gone into recession. I don't believe that middle of next year we're going to be in dire straits. I think we're already seeing a lift.
Well, are you serious?
In August, 9,000 new jobs were added.
Chris, how can
9% increase in exports.
Hold on.
We're starting to recover.
Chris, hold on a sec.
How did they let this man into a polling booth?
I don't know.
I strongly object, though. I
vote.
strongly object to the idea that seems to have been promulgated on the quiet that there is no recession coming.
No.
Things are going to get bloody hairy.
We face a really difficult global situation, I agree. But the indications at the moment aren't so bad.
They're bad, man.
Well,
and
let me just
9,000 new jobs and 9,000 new jobs in
100,000
August.
people are going to lose their jobs on
9% increase in exports. These are good early signs.
Can I just talk about reality?
Before the questioning started of Jacinda Ardern this afternoon, she was saying, and you can imagine business in Auckland saying, she's right, She said that when we go to level 1, the economy will pick up very quickly and we won't know virtually that anything's happened. Doesn't she know that we're not getting any tourists into this country?
No, and also the other point about
it's
this.
It's all relative.
The other point about this, businesses who export now from New Zealand, they cannot get people into their key markets. They cannot eyeball their customers. They cannot be over there sussing out if they're getting the right price for what they're selling. They are locked in here, and it has made a massive...
The government has just announced 2 weeks ago a whole lot of extra funding for MFAT, for New Zealand Trade and Enterprise. It is going to make a difference. It's about selling our exports in a world that's looking for clean and green stuff.
It's all bureaucracy, Chris. It doesn't mean that if I'm selling something, I can't fly to the market and see my customer.
How do you escape? I know Barry hates statistics, but how do you escape the fact that 9,000 extra jobs were added in August and exports went up 9%? Okay, we're facing some very serious challenges, But there are beginning to be some good signs.
Well, I suggest you go back to pre-food. Look at the statistics. Look at what Treasury are expecting.
And it was better than they predicted.
Listen, guys,
it was better than they
I'm going to have to wrap
earlier.
this up because I'm getting the evil words in my ear now. I try to push it out as much as I possibly could because I was
Can we just end on a high note?
Yes, please.
So coming back to the Greens and their chances, their theme song for election night, and it's an absolute banger from the 80s, 1986, Bon Jovi, Living on a Prayer.
That would have been good for Judith as well. Okay, let's take a break. When we come back, Trumpy's got the Rona, so what does this mean? And also, we have to talk about the early voting. It is very significant in this election. It's coming up 13 to 5, News Talk ZB.
B.
All right, it's 11 away from 5. You're back with the front bench. Listen, okay, Donald Trump has got the COVID. Barry, what does this mean for their election? Is this going to turn things in his favour or not?
Oh, I think absolutely. He's trying to exploit it already. I mean, he left the hospital and did a drive-by, waving at, he said, were a large number of supporters, and it was apparently impromptu. And he's given a couple of speeches since he's been inside. So he's working it for all it's worth. And look, I've spoken to, well, at least one American in this country that said, look, it's all I have. He hasn't got coronavirus at all. This is just a ploy by him to get the sympathy vote because Joe Biden was ahead in the opinion polls. I doubt that, but nevertheless, he'll exploit it for all it's worth.
Very far-fetched. Trish, you know, when I was watching the thing over the weekend and the doctor getting up and telling lies and then Trump doing all these videos that were doctored and driving it, I thought this is like something out of Russia or North Korea, isn't it? Like such overt propaganda.
Oh, no, what got me is that ridiculous press conference of Trump's doctor, and he's there in the white coat and he's got about 85 other medical people doing nothing in the background.
Felt like communist China.
Oh, it's outrageous. But Trump's drive-by today, that is the most dangerous and ridiculous thing I have ever seen.
It's infectious.
Can you imagine having COVID-19 coming through and out the hospital and driving around? It's got even more ridiculous.
Yeah, I don't agree with Barry that it helps him. I think it doesn't help him at all because it's shifted the political discussion in the US now back back to COVID. And his record
on his reputation on
and his record on COVID is so appalling. 209,000 people dead. Now 7.5 million infected. And this is the discussion that Republicans don't want to have.
Do you know what I think is the supreme irony in all of this? That the three leaders who have handled COVID the worst, Boris Johnson, Bolsonaro in Brazil, and now Donald Trump,
have all caught
all appalling, and they've all caught the virus.
I mean, we
there
have,
must be somebody up there that Judith's praying.
Well, we've been talking about things from above. This is more karmic than traditional religion.
Heather, as you know, we have various political viewpoints on this panel, as the listeners can tell. But I think on the subject of Donald Trump, I think we're all on the same page.
That we love him.
No, Barry, we don't love him. I think we are so lucky in this country and in our neighbour Australia, even though I don't really like their Prime Minister very much, compared to what the Americans have had to suffer under Trump, we are so lucky.
Absolutely.
Did you notice Trump was much less orange though in his video from hospital?
He can't get access to the tan thing.
No.
Well, I read that he
sunbed
takes
or is it a
Propecia as
spray?
well.
I think it's sort of a paint.
I think it's a spray.
Or a lacquer.
Yeah, because you wouldn't tan that colour, would you? Although you could apply something.
I saw a wonderful cartoon with his skin being white, where the
face mask
should be. And they could
well, Biden's 8% ahead in the polls. I just think that I was wrong about Hillary, but I don't think I'm going to be wrong about Biden. No. I predict Biden will win the election.
Oh gosh, it's so hard to predict these things. All right, let's take a break. When we come back with the front bench, Barry Sober-Tricius and Chris Carter, we're going to talk about the significance of early voting and just get their take on the week ahead. News Talk ZB 7 away from 5.
Good location, eh?
It is. The median sale price is up 6.2%. Your work is 23 minutes away. And we're in zone for a great primary school.
School? Why does that matter?
Are you ready to settle on a new home? With One Roof, you'll find all the information you need, from thousands of in-depth listings, sales data, suburb information, property records, and much more. Be property prepared with One Roof.
How do you know when something's real? Is it real if you've read it, heard it, seen it? The story is a story as soon as it's been shared. How do you know you can believe it?
Believe it when you read it in New Zealand's Herald.
G'day, I'm Sam, and here at driven.co.nz, we've got a nifty toolbox to help make buying and selling a car easier. Selling, but not sure what price to put on it? Our car value calculator will give you a really good starting point. If you're buying a new car, our cost to run tool will give you a rough estimate of what the car will cost you each year to run. We can also tell you the best time to sell so you get the sweetest possible return. Check out the toolbox at driven.co.nz.
ZB.
5 away from 5. Chris Carter's pulled me up and said I haven't come to him first on anything at any stage. So Chris, I'm coming to you.
to me.
so not to break a habit, Barry. No, just joking. Chris, I'd like to know what you think. What are your key highlights that you're looking forward to in the week ahead, and also just a little something on the impacts of early voting.
Well, I don't want to sound as I'm whining here. So, but you leave the best till last.
Yes, of course.
So I'm happy to go first this time. Heather, I went and voted today, so I'm an early voter. And I have to say that when I voted in Henderson, the polling place was full of people. And it wasn't just oldies, although the school holidays are on, of course, but there were all ages in there, and there was a bit of a queue. And I think that people have listened to the Prime Minister's words: get in, vote early, spread it out, don't have crowds there, keep safe. And I think I'm expecting pretty heavy voting this week.
Yeah.
I think we'll see some more antics from Winston between now and the end of the week. I think that it's going to be really interesting in Auckland Central. There's clearly, Helen White's dropped a bit, but she's still ahead, so I'm watching that carefully. And of course, Northcote is my favourite electorate. That's where I'm helping out. And I'm hoping that Shannon Halbert will be able to maintain his lead.
Trish, we've got a debate we've got a poll tomorrow night. We've got a debate later in the week. Multi-parties, yep.
Yes, and we've also got the press debate this week.
Oh yes, of course, and that,
which is always pretty tough. I know I'm a fan of vote on the day. I like the whole process around it, that you get up on the day and cast your vote. And I think there is still time to run. The other thing I think that I'm looking for this week is so Auckland Central is really interesting.
I've got 30 seconds.
But the other one is the East Coast.
Okay, Barry, you've got 10.
The thing about voting is I find difficult because we never get to vote in our electorate ever on an election day. So I'll vote probably on the day, but it will, as usual, be a special vote, which is a bit frustrating.
Thank you so much.
It'll be a good week the next one.
Okay, thanks, guys. That was our front bench. Barry Soper, Trish Scherson, Chris Carter. This is Living on a Prayer for the Greens, yes? Stay tuned. News Talk ZB.